I stared at the eviction notice in my trembling hands, the words blurring through my tears. 30 days, I whispered to myself, watching my stepmother Helen smirk from the kitchen doorway. Behind her, my stepsister Miranda was already measuring my bedroom with a tape measure, planning how to redecorate once I was gone. "Don't look so shocked, Rebecca," Helen said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You're 22 now. Time to stop being a burden on this family." She gestured toward Miranda, who was holding fabric samples against the wall. "Miranda needs a proper studio space for her art. Unlike you, she actually has talent." The irony wasn't lost on me. If only they knew about the patent application sitting in my desk drawer upstairs, approved just last week. If only they knew that their stupidest child had just secured the rights to an invention that would change everything. But they didn't know. And for now, I intended to keep it that way. Growing up as the unwanted stepdaughter in the Morrison household had been a special kind of hell. My father had died when I was 8, leaving me to Helen's questionable mercy when she married my stepfather Robert 2 years later. Robert was weak, easily manipulated, and completely under Helen's spell. To him, I was just another mouth to feed, a reminder of his predecessor. Helen had wasted no time establishing the family hierarchy. Miranda, her biological daughter, was the golden child. Beautiful, charismatic, destined for greatness. I was the mistake, the accident, the girl who couldn't do anything right. Every achievement I managed was either dismissed or attributed to luck. Every failure was magnified and discussed at length during family dinners. "Rebecca can't even make toast without burning it," Helen would say, laughing while Miranda nodded along. "Thank God we have Miranda to carry on the family intelligence." The name-calling had started early. Dummy, slowpoke, the family disappointment. By the time I was 15, they'd settled on their favorite, the stupidest child. It was Helen's go-to introduction whenever visitors came over. "This is Rebecca, our stupidest child. Don't expect much from her." School became my refuge, particularly science and math classes where I could disappear into problems that had clear solutions. Unlike my home life, equations didn't lie or manipulate. They were honest. If you put in the work, you got results. My teachers noticed my aptitude, but their praise never made it home. Helen would dismiss any positive report cards as grade inflation or teacher's pity. When I won the regional science fair at 16, she told people I'd probably cheated. When I graduated as valedictorian, she claimed the school had lowered their standards. But it was during my freshman year of college that everything changed. I'd been working on a project for my engineering class, trying to solve a problem that had been bugging me for years. In our house, we were constantly dealing with power outages during storms. The outdated electrical system couldn't handle the load, and Robert was too cheap to hire an electrician. I'd started tinkering with a small device in my dorm room, a power management system that could automatically redistribute electrical load during surges and outages. It was surprisingly simple in concept, but incredibly complex in execution. The device could learn the power consumption patterns of a household and make micro adjustments to prevent overloads while maintaining essential power to critical systems. What started as a solution to my family's electrical problems became my obsession. I spent every free moment refining the design, testing prototypes, and documenting my process. My roommate thought I was crazy staying up until 3 a.m. soldering circuits and running calculations. By my junior year, I had a working prototype that was more efficient than anything currently on the market. My professor, Dr. Chen, was amazed. "Rebecca, this could revolutionize home energy management," she told me. "Have you considered applying for a patent?" A patent. The word sent shivers down my spine. I'd never thought of myself as an inventor, much less someone capable of creating something valuable. But Dr. Chen connected me with the university's technology transfer office, and slowly, carefully, I began the patent application process. I told no one at home. Why would I? They'd just find some way to diminish it, or worse, try to take credit. Helen had a talent for inserting herself into any success story, twisting narratives until she was somehow responsible for other people's achievements. The patent process took 2 years. 2 years of secret meetings with lawyers, prototype refinements, and market research. 2 years of living a double life, playing the family disappointment at home while building something extraordinary in private. And then, 3 weeks ago, the approval came through. U.S. patent 11,234,567, Adaptive Residential Power Management System by Rebecca Morrison. My name, my invention, my future. I'd already been in talks with TechFlow Industries, a major manufacturer of home automation systems. They were interested, very interested. So interested that they'd made a preliminary offer of $2.8 million for the patent rights plus royalties on every unit sold. But Helen and Robert knew none of this. To them, I was still the failure, the burden, the girl who couldn't even hold down a part-time job at the campus bookstore. Never mind that I'd quit to focus on my invention. Now, holding the eviction notice, I felt a surge of something I'd rarely experienced in this house. Power. 30 days, I repeated, looking up at Helen. That's very generous of you. She seemed surprised by my calm response. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. Miranda has such wonderful plans for your room. She's going to turn it into an art studio. A real artist needs proper space to create. Miranda beamed, holding up a paint swatch. I'm thinking soft lavender for the walls. It's supposed to inspire creativity. I nodded thoughtfully. Lavender sounds lovely. I'm sure you'll be very happy here. Helen's eyes narrowed slightly. Something in my tone must have registered as off. You're taking this very well. Why wouldn't I? I shrugged. You're right, I am 22. It's time I made my own way in the world. That evening, I sat in my room, soon to be Miranda's art studio, and made my phone calls. First to the lawyers at Chen & Associates, the firm handling my patent licensing. Then to TechFlow Industries. Finally, to Sarah Chen, my former professor who'd become something of a mentor. Rebecca, Sarah's voice was warm over the phone. How are you holding up? I know the patent process was stressful. Actually, I'm calling because I need to accelerate our timeline. I need to finalize the licensing deal as soon as possible. There was a pause. Is everything all right? I looked around my childhood bedroom, taking in the peeling wallpaper and the desk where I'd done my homework every night, while enduring criticism from downstairs. Everything's perfect. I just need to make some housing arrangements. Well, I have good news. TechFlow called yesterday. They want to increase their offer to $3.2 million up front, plus 8% royalties. Apparently, their engineering team ran some projections and they think your device could capture 15% of the home automation market within 5 years. I closed my eyes, feeling a surge of vindication so powerful it was almost physical. $3.2 million, I repeated softly. Plus royalties, Sarah emphasized. Rebecca, you're going to be very wealthy. And more importantly, you're going to help millions of families manage their energy consumption more efficiently. This could have a real environmental impact. After hanging up, I spent the evening researching luxury apartments in the city. I found a stunning 2-bedroom penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the river. The monthly rent was more than my family's mortgage payment. I submitted an application that night, along with the required financial documentation. 3 days later, I received confirmation that my application had been approved. I was scheduled to sign the lease in 2 weeks, well before my eviction deadline. But first, I had some shopping to do. I started with the car. I'd never owned anything nicer than my beat-up Honda Civic, a car that Helen constantly mocked as Rebecca's rust bucket. The BMW dealership was intimidating at first, but when I mentioned I was paying cash, the salesperson's attitude shifted dramatically. I test drove a sleek black BMW 7 Series, the kind of car I'd only seen in magazines. The leather seats, the quiet engine, the dashboard that looked like something from a spaceship, it was everything my Honda wasn't. I'll take it, I told the salesperson, signing papers for a $95,000 purchase without blinking. Next was the apartment. The penthouse was even more beautiful in person. Hardwood floors, granite countertops, a balcony overlooking the city. The property manager, Mrs. Chen, no relation to my professor, gave me the grand tour with obvious enthusiasm. The previous tenant was a tech executive, she explained, showing me the home office with built-in shelving and high-speed internet connections. He had the place wired for the latest technology. I signed a year-long lease on the spot, putting down first and last month's rent plus security deposit, nearly $15,000 total. Mrs. Chen seemed impressed by my decisiveness. Will you be moving in soon? She asked. 2 weeks, I confirmed. I just need to wrap up some family business. The hardest part was keeping everything secret for those final weeks. Every morning, I'd wake up in my childhood bedroom, eat breakfast while Helen and Miranda discussed art supplies and room layouts, then drive my rust bucket Honda to campus. But every afternoon, I'd stop by my new apartment, slowly moving boxes of my belongings and setting up my new life. I hired a moving company to handle the furniture I'd been buying. Nothing extravagant, I didn't want to draw attention, but good quality pieces that would make the apartment feel like home. A proper desk for the office, comfortable living room furniture, a bed that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Helen and Miranda spent those weeks planning their renovation with increasing excitement. They'd expanded their vision beyond just an art studio. Miranda was going to have a workspace, a reading nook, even a small refrigerator for her creative snacks. It's going to be so much better once Rebecca's gone, I heard Miranda tell her friend Chloe over the phone. The room has such negative energy right now. All that failure and stupidity just soaking into the walls. Robert, meanwhile, had started talking about the money they'd save on groceries and utilities. An extra $300 a month, he calculated out loud during dinner. We could finally take that trip to Europe we've been planning. I nodded along, letting them dream their small dreams while I planned something infinitely larger. The day before my eviction deadline, I woke up early and drove to campus in my Honda for the last time. I had one final meeting with the lawyers to sign the licensing agreement with TechFlow Industries. The contract was thick, filled with legal language I was still learning to parse, but the important numbers were clear. $3.2 million upon signing, 8% royalties on net sales, and full credit as the inventor. This is a life-changing moment, Rebecca, said James Morrison, the lead patent attorney. No relation, despite the shared last name. At 22, you're about to become one of the youngest millionaire inventors in the country. I signed my name with a fountain pen James provided for the occasion. Rebecca Morrison, inventor. The words looked surreal on the legal documents. The money would be transferred within 48 hours. By tomorrow evening, I would have more money in my bank account than my family had ever seen. That evening at dinner, Helen and Robert were discussing their European vacation plans with renewed enthusiasm. I think we should start in Paris, Helen was saying. Miranda would love the art museums. And then maybe Florence, Miranda added. I want to see where the Renaissance masters worked. I pushed my food around my plate, barely listening. In 18 hours, I would be gone. In 18 hours, they would discover exactly how much they'd underestimated the family's stupidest child. Rebecca, Robert's voice cut through my thoughts. Since tomorrow's your last day, your mother and I want to talk to you about transition arrangements. Stepmother, I corrected automatically, a habit that always annoyed Helen. Whatever, Helen waved dismissively. The point is, we want to make sure you understand that once you leave, you can't just come crawling back when things get difficult. This is a permanent arrangement. I understand, I said calmly. Good. Because we've already started telling people that you've moved out to pursue your ambitions. She said the word like it left a bad taste in her mouth. We don't want any embarrassment if you fail and try to return. Miranda giggled. Can you imagine? Remember Rebecca, the girl who thought she was going to make it on her own? It'll be like a cautionary tale. I looked around the table at these people who'd shaped my childhood with their cruelty and dismissal. In a few hours, I would never have to see them again unless I chose to. You're absolutely right, I said, standing up from the table. This is permanent. I won't be coming back. Something in my tone made Helen pause. Good. I'm glad we understand each other. We do, I agreed, more than you know. I spent my last night in that house packing the final items I wanted to keep. Mostly books, a few photos of my father, and some mementos from college. Everything else could stay. In 18 hours, I would have enough money to buy new everything. At 6 a.m., I loaded my last box into the Honda and drove away from the Morrison house for the final time. I didn't look back. My moving company was already waiting at the penthouse when I arrived. Professional movers efficiently transferred my belongings while I signed the final paperwork with Mrs. Chen. By noon, I was officially a resident of the luxury building that my family couldn't even afford to visit. At 2 p.m., I drove to the BMW dealership and traded in my Honda. The rust bucket that had carried me through college was worth barely $3,000, but I didn't care. I drove off the lot in my new BMW, feeling like I was shedding an old skin. At 4 p.m., I received the call I'd been waiting for. James Morrison's assistant confirmed that the $3.2 million had been successfully transferred to my account. I was officially a millionaire. At 5 p.m., I was sitting on my new balcony, looking out over the city, when my phone rang. Helen's number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Rebecca. Helen's voice was sharp with confusion. Where are you? Your room is empty. I moved out, remember? You gave me 30 days. Yesterday was day 30. But all your furniture is gone, even the bed we bought you. I bought new furniture for my new apartment. There was a long pause. What new apartment? How could you possibly afford a new apartment? You don't even have a job. I smiled, taking a sip of the expensive wine I'd opened to celebrate. Actually, Helen, I do have a job. I'm an inventor, a successful one. Don't be ridiculous, Rebecca. You can't just... I can, and I did. In fact, I have some news I think you'll find interesting. Another pause. I could practically hear the wheels turning in her head. What news? Well, remember how you always said I was the stupidest child in the family? That I'd never amount to anything? Rebecca, I never said... You did, constantly, for over a decade. My voice remained calm, pleasant even. But it turns out you were wrong. Very, very wrong. What are you talking about? I'm talking about U.S. Patent 11,234,567. Adaptive Residential Power Management System. Filed by Rebecca Morrison. That's me, in case you're confused. Silence. I'm talking about a $3.2 million licensing deal I signed today with TechFlow Industries. Plus royalties that will likely earn me another few million over the next 5 years. More silence. I'm talking about the fact that your stupidest child just became a millionaire at 22, while your golden child is still asking you for gas money. That's impossible. Helen's voice was barely a whisper. Is it? Check the patent database if you don't believe me. Or better yet, turn on the news in about 6 months when TechFlow starts marketing my invention. I'm sure they'll mention my name. I heard Robert's voice in the background, asking what was happening. Helen was explaining in disjointed fragments. Rebecca, patent, millions, impossible. It's not impossible, Helen, it's just unexpected. See, while you and Miranda were busy calling me stupid, I was busy getting an engineering degree. While you were planning art studios and European vacations, I was solving real problems and creating real value. But you never told us. Why would I? So you could take credit. So you could find some way to diminish it? Or maybe so you could suddenly decide I was worth keeping around after all? Robert had taken the phone. Rebecca, sweetheart, if this is true, this is wonderful news. We always knew you had potential. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. No, Robert, you didn't. You signed an eviction notice 3 weeks ago. You were celebrating the money you'd save on my groceries. That was just... We thought you needed motivation to become independent. We always believed in you. Did you? Because I distinctly remember Helen introducing me to your golf buddies as the family disappointment just last month. More silence. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice taking on a businesslike tone. You're going to enjoy Miranda's art studio. You're going to take your European vacation. You're going to live your lives exactly as you planned, with one small difference. What difference? Helen had taken the phone back. I won't be in them. Ever. You've spent 15 years making it clear that I was unwanted, unwelcome, and worthless. Message received loud and clear. Rebecca, you're being dramatic. We're family. This changes things. No, Helen, it doesn't. The only thing that's changed is that now you know exactly how much you underestimated me. But that knowledge comes too late. I hung up. Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. Helen, Robert, Miranda, even some extended family members who'd apparently heard the news. I ignored them all. 3 weeks later, a local business journal ran a feature story about young inventors in the region. My photo was on the cover, standing next to a prototype of my power management system. The headline read, 22-year-old engineer's patent could revolutionize home energy management. The article was picked up by several tech blogs, and within a week, I was fielding interview requests from national publications. The Today Show wanted me for a segment on young entrepreneurs. Forbes was considering me for their Tafouars 30 under 30 inches list. My phone kept ringing with calls from my former family. I finally blocked their numbers. 6 months later, TechFlow launched the first consumer version of my power management system. They called it the Energy Smart Home System, and it exceeded all sales projections. My 8% royalty payments were already generating six figures quarterly. I was in my home office reviewing the latest royalty statement when my doorman called up. "Miss Morrison, there's a woman here claiming to be your mother. Should I send her up?" "Stepmother," I corrected automatically, then paused. "What does she want?" "She says it's urgent family business." I considered for a moment. "Send her up." 5 minutes later, Helen stood in my penthouse doorway looking around at the luxury I'd built for myself. Her eyes were wide, taking in the expensive furniture, the city view, the obvious signs of serious wealth. "Rebecca," she said, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it, "your apartment is beautiful." "Thank you." "What do you want, Helen?" She flinched at my cold tone. "Can I come in? We need to talk." I stepped aside, allowing her into my living room. She perched on the edge of my designer sofa like she was afraid to fully sit. "I saw the article in Forbes," she began, "the one that called you a tech visionary, and the photo in Business Week. You look successful." "I am successful." "Right, yes, of course." She was struggling with something, wringing her hands. "Rebecca, I need to be honest with you. We're having some financial difficulties." "Are you?" "Robert lost his job 3 months ago, downsizing. And Miranda's art isn't, well, it's not selling the way we hoped. We're behind on the mortgage." I waited. "We saw that TechFlow's stock price jumped 40% after they launched your product. And we know you're getting royalties. We hoped, maybe you could help family." The word family hung in the air between us. "Help how?" I asked. "A loan. Just temporary, maybe $50,000 to catch up on payments and get back on our feet. We'd pay you back as soon as Robert finds new work." I looked at this woman who'd spent 15 years systematically destroying my self-worth, who'd called me stupid, worthless, a burden, who'd celebrated my eviction like a holiday. "No," I said simply. Her face crumpled. "Rebecca, please, we're desperate. They're going to foreclose if we don't catch up the payments." "That sounds like a problem you should have considered before spending your savings on a European vacation." "We needed that trip. It was supposed to be our chance to bond as a family before Miranda started her art career." "Your family, not mine. Remember?" Tears were starting in her eyes. "You can't mean that. We raised you. We gave you a home." "You gave me a house to live in and food to eat. That's not the same thing as raising a child or providing a home. And you made it very clear that I was only there on sufferance. We made mistakes. We see that now, but we can change. We can be better." I stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the city. "Helen, do you remember what you said to me the night before I moved out?" She was quiet. "You said this was permanent, that I couldn't come crawling back when things got difficult, that you didn't want any embarrassment when I failed." I was angry. I didn't mean, "Yes, you did. You meant every word, and you were right about one thing. This is permanent." I turned back to face her. "The difference is I didn't fail. You did." She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Please, Rebecca, we'll lose everything. You've lost nothing that truly belonged to you. The house you're about to lose? I could buy 10 of them with cash and not notice the expense. The daughter you're about to disappoint? I was never really yours anyway." I walked to the door and opened it. "I need you to leave now." She stood slowly, her legs shaky. "Rebecca, please, don't do this to us." "I'm not doing anything to you. You're experiencing the natural consequences of your choices. You chose to treat me like garbage for 15 years. You chose to evict me when I became inconvenient. You chose to burn bridges you thought you'd never need." She paused at the doorway. "What about Miranda? She's just a kid. She doesn't deserve this." "Miranda is 25 years old. She's not a kid. And she participated enthusiastically in making my life miserable. She called me stupid, worthless, a waste of space. She laughed when you humiliated me. She measured my bedroom for her art studio while I was sitting right there. But family should protect each other, support each other, celebrate each other's successes. You did none of those things. So, no, Helen. We're not family. We're strangers who used to live in the same house. I closed the door. The next week, I read in the local paper that the Morrison house had been sold at foreclosure auction. A young couple bought it, planning to renovate and start their family there. I hoped they'd be happier in it than I ever was. A month later, my invention won the Consumer Electronics Association's Innovation Award. TechFlow's CEO mentioned me by name in his acceptance speech, calling me a brilliant young engineer whose vision is helping families across America reduce their energy consumption and environmental impact. I was sitting in the audience when he said it, wearing a designer dress that cost more than Helen used to spend on my clothes in a year. The applause was thunderous, and several people turned to congratulate me personally. After the ceremony, a reporter from Tech Quarterly asked me about my background. "I understand you're entirely self-made," she said. "No family money, no connections in the tech industry. How did you develop the confidence to pursue such an ambitious project?" I thought about that question for a long moment. I learned early that no one was going to believe in me except me, I finally answered. So I became very good at believing in myself. Did your family support your inventive pursuits? My family taught me that I had to earn everything I got. They were right about that, just not in the way they intended. The reporter smiled. Sometimes the best motivation comes from unexpected sources. Sometimes, I agreed. That evening, I was back in my penthouse, reviewing the latest royalty statements. My invention was being installed in over 10,000 homes monthly, and each installation generated ongoing revenue. My accountant estimated that I'd be worth over $50 million by my 30th birthday. My phone rang, unknown number. "Rebecca." It was Miranda's voice, nervous and hesitant. "How did you get this number?" I hired a private investigator. "Rebecca, we need to talk." "No, we don't." "Yes, we do. About what happened, about how we treated you. I need to apologize." I almost laughed. "Now you want to apologize? After you've lost everything?" "I know how it looks. But I've been thinking about things differently. About what we did to you. It was wrong." "Yes, it was. I was jealous," she continued, her voice breaking. "You were always so smart, so focused. Even when we called you stupid, I knew you weren't. I knew you were actually smarter than me. It scared me. So you decided to destroy my confidence instead of developing your own talents." "Yes. I'm ashamed of it now." "Rebecca, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know that I understand what we did was wrong." I was quiet for a long moment. "Miranda, I appreciate that you're capable of growth and self-reflection. That's more than I ever expected from any of you. Does that mean, could we maybe try to have a relationship? Start over?" "No." The word hung in the silence. "Why?" Her voice was small, defeated. "Because forgiveness doesn't require restoration. I can forgive you for your own peace of mind, but that doesn't mean I want you in my life. You're a stranger to me, Miranda. You always were. But we're sisters." "No, we're not. We never were. We were two girls who lived in the same house for a while, that's all." I heard her crying on the other end of the line. "I hope you find happiness, Miranda. I genuinely do. But you'll have to find it without me." I hung up and blocked that number too. 2 years later, I was featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine as Innovator of the Year. The article detailed not just my invention, but the 3 additional patents I'd filed and the tech company I'd started to develop smart home solutions. Morrison Technologies now employed 43 people and had government contracts to help military bases and public buildings optimize their energy consumption. I was 24 years old and worth $73 million. The magazine interviewed me at my new corporate headquarters, a sleek building in the tech district with my name on the directory. When they asked about my inspiration, I gave them the same answer I always gave. I wanted to solve problems that mattered: energy efficiency, environmental sustainability, helping families save money and reduce waste. Those are issues that affect everyone. And your personal motivation. What drives someone so young to achieve so much? I looked out the window of my corner office at the city below, thinking about a scared little girl who'd been told she was worthless so many times she almost believed it. I learned early that success is the best response to people who underestimate you, not because you're trying to prove them wrong, but because you're proving yourself right. That evening, I went home to my penthouse. I'd bought the entire top floor and renovated it into a sprawling apartment with its own elevator access. As I walked through rooms filled with art I'd chosen, furniture I'd selected, books I wanted to read, I felt something I'd never experienced in the Morrison house: complete peace. My phone buzzed with congratulations messages from colleagues, friends I'd made in the tech industry, and my team at Morrison Technologies. People who knew me as Rebecca the inventor, Rebecca the CEO, Rebecca the innovator. People who'd never heard the words stupidest child associated with my name. I poured myself a glass of wine and stepped onto my balcony. The city sparkled below me, full of possibilities and problems to solve. Tomorrow, I had meetings about my fourth patent application and a potential partnership with a major automotive manufacturer who wanted to integrate my energy management system into electric vehicles. Somewhere across town, in whatever rental apartment or relative's spare room they'd ended up in, my former family was probably still trying to figure out how they'd gotten it so wrong. How the girl they'd dismissed and discarded had become everything they'd insisted she could never be. But I didn't think about them often anymore. They were part of my past, a chapter I'd closed and locked away. My future was entirely my own creation, built on my own terms, filled with my own choices. I raised my glass in a silent toast to the girl I used to be, the one who'd been smart enough to keep her mouth shut and her plans secret until the moment was right to reveal exactly who she really was. The stupidest child in the family had turned out to be the only one smart enough to build a life worth living. And that was the sweetest victory of all.